Countess of Castiglione was famous as a real side chick, but she's infamous as a cold-blooded bee. Born on March 22, 1837, the Countess's pedigree was nothing to sneeze at. Her parents were Tuscan nobles, and her extended family members were just as well connected. The Countess was born Virginia Elisabetta Luisa Carlotta Antonietta Teresa Maria Alduini. Alduini. Try saying that 5 times fast. With a name that took a quarter of this video's runtime to say, it's safe to say that the Countess's parents had big expectations for their little girl. Expectations that she would meet at a great cost. Growing up, it was clear to everyone that little Virginia was going to be a beauty. With long blonde waves cascading down her back, eyes that seemed to shift from a startling green to brilliant blue-violet, and a figure to shame Aphrodite, Virginia was highly praised and desired for her beauty, a fact which both she and her parents took complete advantage of. Early in her life, the Countess would demonstrate a blatant disregard for the social mores of her era and her station, and just before entering her arranged marriage, she would enter a steamy affair with a hot naval officer. Unfortunately, however, Virginia would have to become an honest woman sooner or later, because her parents had selected for her the middle-aged Count of Castiglione, Francesco Verezes. About the only good thing to come out of that marriage was Virginia's one and only son, Giorgio, but we'll talk more about him later. The beautiful young Countess now found herself bored, unfulfilled, and tied to a man twice her age. Luckily, this wouldn't be the case for long. When Virginia's cousin Camillo Benso came calling, he had just the adventure to sate his cousin's appetite. Camillo had been a minister for the King of Sardinia and was now in the middle of trying to convince the French Emperor Napoleon III to unify Italy, and he knew his cousin had a certain way with men. Now, you can't gain entree into the Hot Girl Historical Figure Club without being a spy at least once in your life, so that's exactly what our girl decided to do. She would enter Napoleon's social circle as a spy and a seductress, because that's the other requirement to get into the Hot Girl Historical Figure Club. Excited to escape her humdrum marriage, Virginia jumped at the challenge and the chance to go to Paris. But all she heard was pa-rum-pa-pum-pum right behind her, because Count Francesco was not letting his pretty little child bride anywhere out of his sight. But if you think this stopped the Countess, you've got another thing coming, honey. With those looks and that pedigree, Virginia entered the royal court to open arms. The open arms of Napoleon III, whose wife, Empress Eugenie, was the exact opposite of the lusty Count. The chaste, pious royal had long stopped sleeping with her philandering husband, and she was happy to let him be Virginia's problem. That is, until the courtesan forgot her place. Countess Virginia quickly became the toast of Parisian royalty with her flair for fashion and beauty. The people called her a miracle and dubbed her La Divina Contessa. And our conniving countess took to this title easily. So much so that she began diving into self-portraiture. The Countess would arrange her own photo shoots between the years of 1856 and 1895. Not only that, she would stage, direct, and even touch up her photos herself. Then she would distribute her selfies amongst her friends as gifts, because nothing says I care about you more than a picture of me. Virginia amassed a collection of 400 self-portraits in her life. Between her carefully curated self-image and her trend-setting fashion sense, the Countess was basically a Victorian-era influencer. When she entered a room, crowds stopped and stared, because Virginia was sure to be wearing something show-stopping to the latest ball. But the most jaw-dropping of these bold ensembles was yet to come. Now, it'll come as no surprise that the Countess was certainly not a girl's girl. She often refused to talk to or associate with other women and took great joy at gaining favor over other women. And her royal rival, Empress Eugenie, was no exception. Child, not only did Virginia and Napoleon flaunt their affair right in the Queen's face, they took it a step further when Eugenia entered Napoleon's next ball with the Emperor on her arm as her latest accessory. And this wasn't just any old party. Oh no. This was a costume ball, in which the Countess upgraded herself to Queen when she dressed up as the Queen of Hearts, honey. Not only making it clear that she was the true ruler of Napoleon's heart, but also of his bed, because Virginia's extravagant gown was practically see-through, with strategically placed hearts all over it. And of course, our messy miss didn't wear a corset or underwear with this ensemble. But if Miss Messy Contessa thought she was going to get the last laugh, she had another thing coming, because Eugenie walked right up to her on her husband's arm, looked her up and down like the trash she saw Virginia as, and said, "The heart is a little low, madam." Translation, your titties are showing, bish. Oh honey, they weren't throwing shade, they were throwing sunshine, because the entire Parisian royal court got front row seats to that show. Now, throughout all of this, you're probably wondering where the hell is Count Verastes during all this? Well honey, he was probably at the bank, because Virginia's expensive taste was draining all his money, leaving the Count bankrupt. Following his bank run, he decided to hop on over to divorce court, because Virginia's antics had him through with her trifling behind. In 1957, the Count separated from Virginia, and sometime during this process, he tried to take their only son, Giorgio, into custody. Keyword, tried. Because when Virginia found out about this, the Countess put her photography skills to use. She sent the Count a picture of herself, and I'm sure at first Count Verastes was rolling his eyes like, here she go again, thinking everybody thinks she's as cute as she do. But when he took a closer look at the picture, his eyes froze on one thing in particular. In the folds of the luxurious gown she bought with his money, the Countess had hidden a knife, and she labeled the picture La Vengeance. Now, y'all see from this story alone that our girl has no qualms about doing whatever it takes to get what she wants. Imagine being married to her and having a front row seat to that crazy. Count Verastes won't take in no chances, and Virginia got to keep her son. Although the Countess may have won the battle, she did end up losing the war because by 1960, Napoleon had grown tired of her company and dismissed her from the position of his mistress. Shortly after, she also lost favor with the rest of the court. The exact reason as to why this fall from grace happened remains a mystery. But the Countess did not leave the palace unsuccessful. You may have forgotten because of all the antics that Virginia got up to in her time in the royal court, but she actually accomplished the original goal that she had set out to when her cousin sent her there in the first place. In 1861, Italy finally unified into an official kingdom, thanks in no small part to the Countess's tireless, breathy efforts. And this wouldn't be the only time the infamous courtesan played a major role in politics. During her time rubbing shoulders with the Parisian royals, the Countess met and befriended German diplomat Otto von Bismarck. And when Germany was considering occupying France, he actually called up the Countess to ask her opinion on the matter. To which our girl replied, "Nah, don't do that." And the statesman actually complied. Now looking to support herself, the high-class courtesan began selling her time to some of the highest bidders in the land. Reportedly, the Marquess Richard Seymour Conway offered her 1 million francs just for 12 hours of her company. But as time began to catch up with Virginia, so too did her vanity. For a woman lauded for her beauty her entire life, aging was a living nightmare for the Countess. So much so that she started to become a voluntary recluse, choosing not to go out unless absolutely necessary, and then later in her life, not at all, unless it was at night and in the cover of her black gowns and thick black face veils, which would soon become a staple in her once sumptuous and flamboyant wardrobe. Vain by nature, however, Virginia never quit photography, but nowadays her self-portraits had taken on a macabre nature. No longer a bold and confident beauty, the woman would begin taking pictures of herself posing in caskets and even one with her dead dog. But this sudden morbidity in her personality wasn't just a result of a vain woman's waning beauty. In 1879, the Countess's beloved son Giorgio passed of smallpox, predating his mother's death by 2 decades. Such a tragic loss for a woman who had only ever really known wins in her life had a devastating effect on her mental state. Countess Oldwini would remain isolated and heartbroken for the remainder of her life, and on November 28, 1899, she would pass away, ironically and tragically, before getting the chance to debut her photos at an exhibition. Fortunately, her extension collection of self-portraits are now displayed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. For the world's first supermodel and the earliest influencer, there couldn't be a more fitting end.